Hey guys, it's Meg and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm setting my bullet journal up ready for July, and let's just get into it. So for this month I'm going to be recreating one of my old favourite themes from my first bullet journal back in 2021. You may well have seen this video, which now has around 4 million views from when I was filling in this journal 4 years ago now. And just for some reason it was really popular and I had so many comments of people asking for a full tutorial on how I set it up. So I thought, why not recreate it this month, and that way I can then give the full tutorial, and it's also quite cool because you can see how it's going to end up looking before I've even done it. So I'm not going to recreate all of the spreads because there's some that are just less relevant now. But I do really love how they all looked. I'm especially excited to get to do some of those weekly spreads again, and I'm looking forward to the nostalgia of recreating this. So let's get started. So as you've been able to have a good look through my 2021 journal, you know what page we're going to be starting with, which is a quote page. And I don't always include these, so it's nice to be setting one of these up again. They're really fun, and I think it's a nice way to get into the vibe of the new month, just a great way to kick off the new theme and the new setup. I remember picking out this quote, probably from Pinterest back in 2021, and I always try and have a quote that is relevant to the theme. And of course, watermelon themed quotes are a little bit thin on the ground, so this was one of the only options, but it's still a really sweet quote and it works really well. It's "Don't let the seed stop you from enjoying the watermelon," which is a cute watermelon themed way of just reminding you to not let the small negatives get in the way of seeing the positives. You know, one bad thing happening in a day doesn't mean the whole day has to be a write-off. And I just think that's a really nice reminder to have at the start of the month. And of course, the little watermelon whale that's spitting all its seeds out is just a bonus. So for a quote page like this, I think it's nice to use a variety of different sized pens, because obviously a quote page is focused on the writing and the words. So just to make that a little bit more interesting to look at, I think varying the size of the pen tip just gives you a subtle difference between the different words. And so on this page, for example, I used a combination of 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and then I used the felt tip end of the Tombow brush pen, so like a thick felt tip pen nib for the enjoying word, which just makes it more fun to look at. And I like to include different types of lettering, different typography styles, so you can see there's a few different handwriting styles that I've used on this page. We've got capital letters, we've got curly, bouncy hand lettering, we've got more standard handwriting, and then I've also used that fun bubble writing at the bottom for the word watermelon, which was then really fun to decorate and make it look watermelon-y. I just did this by using the green pen at the bottom of the letters, the pink for the top sort of 2/3, and I also left a little bit of white through the middle to split up the colours. And then I went back in with a small black pen to add some seeds into the pink section of the writing, and it just looks so cute. So I love quote pages and they're just fun to play around with, experiment a little bit, and I love how it turned out. So now moving on to the cover page. I really like this cover page because it's so simple but looks really effective and really stands out. It's just simple lettering. I've got hello in capitals, and then July I've used the felt tip end of the brush pen again to write July in the bouncy hand lettering style. This is a little different than I did it in 2021, just because my style has developed a little bit, and I think looking back I used quite a lot of different handwriting and hand lettering styles in the previous journal, and I prefer to keep it a little bit more consistent now, just because I think it helps tie the month together as a whole and make it look more cohesive. So I decided that this bouncy style of lettering was going to be the one that I kind of focus on and bring throughout the month on all the different pages. But other than the lettering, I then have the page just filled with little doodles of watermelons, which is really fun to draw because they are just so easy. You just need a triangle and then a slight curve for the final side, and double up that line because that's where the skin of the watermelon would be. That will be the green part. And I also did a full watermelon and half watermelon slice down at the bottom just to change it up a bit, but if you didn't feel comfortable drawing those, you could just keep it to all the little triangle watermelon slices all over the page, and I think it would still look just as good. And just to let you know the colours that I'm using, so I'm using the Tombow brush pens. I think when I did it the first time round, I actually used Stabilo highlighters, the pink and green ones. This time I wanted the pink to be slightly brighter. I just thought it would make it pop a bit more and feel a bit more summery. So the Tombow colours that I used are the pink 803 and the green 243, and those are pretty much the only two pens I use other than the black pens for the outlining and the writing. So it's such an easy theme to do. You could of course use any pink and green pen that you've got lying around, and I think I actually used some colour pencil back in 2021 as well, but it just goes to show that it's a really accessible theme. You don't need many colours at all, so hopefully you can enjoy recreating it. Next is a really popular page, and honestly one of my favourites that I've ever done, which is a weather log. You can tell that I was at the start of my bullet journal journey when I was including every spread and tracker that you could possibly think of, but the weather log is a really nice one to include in the summer, especially in the UK. If you were doing it in the winter, you would end up with pretty much just clouds and rain all over the weather log, but in the summer we get a bit more variety, and we should have some of those little sun doodles, which brightens the page up nicely. But in order to set this up, I used a double page spread, and I've drawn out a grid to match the calendar for the month based on it starting on a Monday and finishing on a Sunday from left to right. The boxes I did were 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters, so that gives us nice sized boxes for filling it in. I've done weather logs before, like in my June setup, where I did them a lot smaller, and that works too, but for the purposes of recreating this one, I thought I would do it as I did back then and use the full 2 pages for it, which I actually love because it means I had space on the right hand side for a little quote, which I did in a very similar style to the quote page with the different pen sizes and different handwriting styles. And the quote says, "You can't have a rainbow without a little rain," which is so cute and obviously a perfect fit for the weather log page. And then before adding any colour, I always rub out any pencil marks that are underneath. And then I used my Tombow brush pens to add some colour to the page, starting off with the little rainbow doodle in the middle of the quote. I really love how the bouncy handwriting forms around the rainbow in kind of an arch. I just think that's really cute. And I decided to use more pastel colours for the yellow, pink, green, purple and blue that I added to the rainbow, but if you wanted to go bright, you could go bright with this, or even just leaving it in black and white works well too. I also just went over the top with the same grey that I used for the cloud to add a bit of definition into it, and then I was able to colour in all of the little illustrations as part of the key. So I've got thunderstorm, rain, cloud, cloudy with a little bit of sun, cloudy with more sun, and then full sun. So those are the options that I put in my key, and it's nice that I can actually show you what it would be looking like once it's all filled in, which I can't normally do. And that is it for the weather log page. Moving on now to the mood tracker, and I'm starting by setting up a little box in the top left hand corner for the key. So this is just super simple. I've drawn 4 squares with smiley faces next to them to represent each mood, and then I will colour in each box with a different colour that I can then use for tracking the moods through the month. And I remember back in 2021 when I was creating this page, I'd scrolled through Pinterest and other social medias and I couldn't find a watermelon mood tracker that I like the look of, so I just came up with this. It's a little bit random, but it definitely fits with the theme, and I think I drew it better this time than I did a few years ago. All the lines were a little bit neater, which is nice to see some improvement. Unfortunately, what I didn't do better was putting the numbers in. I didn't include them last time, but I remembered thinking I wish I'd numbered this, so putting in the days of the month into the little segments. But as I was writing the numbers in, I forgot that the outer section was meant to just be left green for the skin on the watermelon to make it all look nice come the end. So I ended up having to fiddle the numbers around a little bit. But we got there in the end, and once again I'm able to show you what it looks like when it's filled in from my old journal, and I'm glad I chose shades of pinks and reds, so once it's all filled in it still looks like a watermelon. Now we are onto the sleep tracker, which I haven't actually included in my journal for a little while. I went through a phase of including the sleep tracker on my weekly spreads instead and setting it up like a mini graph, which I think still looks really cute, but again, as we're recreating what I did a few years ago, at that point in time I was using the full monthly sleep tracker, so that's what I'm setting up here. It's a really simple one to set up, but it is very time consuming and it definitely makes your hand ache. So on the left hand side I've got the days of the month, and I also put the initial of what the day was. So T for Tuesday, W for Wednesday, that sort of thing. And then down the middle I have got the numbers 9, 10, 11, 12 and then 1 to 11. So this is to represent the time. So I will highlight each day the numbers that I slept from and to. So for example, if I went to bed at 10 o'clock, I would start highlighting there. And then if I woke up at 8, I would highlight all the way through to 8. I don't know if I explained that well, but it is easy and you'll see what I mean when I show you the filled in version. But as this one is pretty much just a page of numbers, I decorated it with the little watermelon slices around the edge and also used that bouncy hand lettering for the title as well. This is how it looks once it's actually filled in, and that's it for the sleep tracker page. Moving on to the habit tracker, and as I said earlier, I definitely included all the trackers that you can think of in this setup back in 2021, but it was really quite nostalgic setting it up like this again because my style has changed over the years and I don't tend to include the habit trackers as much. Again, a bit like with the sleep tracker, I would sometimes use them on the weekly spreads instead, which I think works really nicely because you can then change the habits week to week and it's not quite as intimidating as a monthly one because obviously there's no hiding from the days that you don't stick to your habits. It is all there in black and white, but obviously it is a good accountability tool. So I'm going to be trying to stick to all these habits throughout July. So for my habits this month, I've picked walk, meditation, vitamins, posting on social media, journaling, reading, and also doing something creative because that is something that really does make me feel better. It's a good bit of self-care, really good for your mental health, and it's something I just want to include more of day to day as much as I can. And so hopefully this habit tracker will remind me what my priorities were at the start of the month and to try and keep me on track with a few of those things. I do think 7 habits is maybe a little bit much. I did have 8 originally, but I cut it down and included another watermelon drawing. But I think just picking a few, 3 or 4, is probably more than enough. And the final page that we've got to set up is the gratitude log. Again, this is one that I sometimes include as maybe half a page, but it is nice to have the full page as it gives you a bit more space to write. So I've just got the days of the month down the left hand side, and I then alternate between the green and pink colours just to help create some separation between the lines. And then you just write one line each day, something you're grateful for, or you can use it as a little memory dump for the month, a summary of your day, that sort of thing. But that is literally it for the gratitude log, and this is what it looks like once it's all filled in, and that is my July bullet journal all set up. So let's recap my July bullet journal. We've got the quote page, cover page, we've got the double page spread for the weather log, we've got the mood tracker, sleep tracker, habit tracker, and finally the gratitude log. If you want to go back to the start to see the flip through of my old journal, you can see the few extra spreads that I've not included. So that will include a calendar page, I had a water tracker, I also had a content creation planner, and of course all the weekly spreads. But I'll be setting those up as we go through the weeks and uploading those as shorts. So keep an eye out for those. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified when I next upload. And I'll see you in the next one.